Let's go!
Modern controls. After a month of playing the game, I can tell you at the later portion of Diamond rank, I did not run into nearly anybody using modern controls. They go away completely. Are they bad? They're not. They're actually pretty good, and they're helping out a lot of people be okay at Street Fighter. But here's my argument, and we're going to talk about classic versus modern, and also controller versus arcade stick, because I think they share some similarities. So let's first talk about modern controls. I have not played with them at all, but they're doing what they need to do, which is to get people to play Street Fighter. They also have a caveat, right? We know that they take away attacks. We know that they nerf damage. Let's bring it back beyond that, because yeah, modern controls are actually good even at high level. Some characters really benefit from some modern controls for sure. And there is a couple of things at high level that make them good. But let's talk about the actual reason behind it. And the reason behind modern controls. Why would the game have modern controls? Because you can't do special moves in Street Fighter. Ultimately, they've balanced it where it can be usable for even the highest level, even if you know how to do the special moves. But let's be real. Modern controls exist because you can't do a dragon punch, you can't do a fireball, you can't do a reverse fireball, you cannot do these motions. A lot of people still, of the 2 million people that have bought Street Fighter 6 now, just can't do the special moves consistently. So they're bad at it. SPDs, like, whatnot. Yeah, SPDs, there's an argument there because SPDs is technically a difficult motion. So they want everyone to have fun. Here's the funny thing about people complaining about modern controls. The funny thing about all the complaints that happen is that these are 100% from low ranks, right? This is like a silver, a bronze, maybe gold. Some of those players are complaining that they're running into too many people using modern controls. They see somebody fighting with modern controls and they think that is absolute bullshit. I have to work for my special moves and you don't, you piece of shit bitch. What's funny about that to me is that people look at special moves being free to use on modern controls as doing special moves means that you're good at Street Fighter. The majority of people at lower ranks see modern controls and think that if this guy is doing easy special moves, fuck, I'm doing what is actually difficult. Dragon punches and SPDs and fireballs. I'm good at Street Fighter. I can do these things. People actually think that doing special moves makes you good at Street Fighter. And that's what I'm trying to boil this down to. No. Because you know how to do special moves does not make you good at Street Fighter. This really reminds me of the same exact thing going back to Street Fighter 4, where everyone complained that I cannot do one-frame link combos. That is the reason I'm bad at Street Fighter. I can't do one-frame link combos. I will never use modern controls. I will do my special inputs manually because that is very hard to do. This is a sentiment that's echoing from people that are relatively new to fighting games, but probably feel like they're really good at them, which exists. The basement warrior existed for games like Soul Calibur back in the day. So modern controls upsetting people comes from a mentality where you feel like doing special moves is what makes you good at Street Fighter. Literally not that. Like, who cares if you know how to do... Anybody at high level is like, who cares if you know how to do special moves? That's not the thing that makes modern controls good. What makes modern controls good is like free cross-cut DPs, sure, a mitigation of special moves, and also being able to do supers with one fucking button. That is good, okay? That is the thing that makes modern controls actually good, is immediate supers and immediate level 3s for reactions. But people at lower level aren't using it for that shit, dude. People are just using modern controls so they can actually do the special moves they can't do, so that their fingers don't bleed when they like are mashing these buttons and shit. So to me, the entire argument against modern controls is completely bogus. And I boil down into the argument that like, I'm fine with it if people are just playing the game. I've been beaten by people using modern controls in Diamond. I don't give a shit. It wasn't the modern controls that made them good, dude. They outzoned me. They played proper spacing and footsies. They teched my throws. They DI'd my ass in the corner. There's plenty of other things that fucked me up in that round outside of them using modern controls. There's so many caveats to modern controls anyway that I don't... it nerfs the game. In several ways, it actively nerfs the game. And in only some very very minor high-level case scenarios is modern controls actually good. Speaking about modern and classic versus arcade stick and, you know, one of these or some shit, I feel like I have to talk about this every once in a while when it comes to fighting games, because you get the question of like, do I play with the modern layout or do I play with the, you know, classic layout? Excuse my arcade stick, it's literally falling apart. And please understand that some people will still argue that if you're using one of these, you're like a bitch ass scrub, right? Not as much anymore, because some of the best players in the world use controller. It's kind of gone away. So that mentality is still sort of stuck in a vibe from Street Fighter 4. And why does that exist? And I've explained this before. It exists because you spent $150 on an arcade stick. You're not specifically good at Street Fighter. You think that the arcade stick's gonna make you good. You need to justify your purchase. So we heard that a lot, that you using a controller makes you a bitch ass scrub, right? In the exact same way you using modern controls makes you a bitch ass scrub. So if we're talking about what controller do you need to use for Street Fighter 6, whatever's easier, dude. There are things that make fighting games easier on pad. There are things that make fighting games easier on stick. This is a 6-button fighting game. I like playing 6-button fighting games on stick, but you can change that with modern controls and play on pad. It is completely preference, right? 100% preference. I just like arcade stick because there's a lot of motion, movement, and mobility with my hands. I feel like I'm back at the arcades in some way. So I like that. I like the fact that it feels like I am preserving a legacy. And I've said this many times before. Arcade sticks aren't really here specifically to make you better at Street Fighter. They're just preserving a legacy, right? They're just kind of a remembrance back to arcade days. And if you like the arcade style controls, they're still available in some way. Because there is other ways that will make you actually better at fighting games like hitbox and stuff like that. There is statistical advantages to things like hitbox in some way. So again, there is an echo of similarity between people that bitch about, I don't use modern controls, those guys are scrubs, to the same way there has been in the past. I don't use a controller, those guys are scrubs. I use an arcade stick because I'm good at the game, right? All it comes down is people are trying to justify their lower skill level in a game in some way and trying to like make up for it. And I get it, right? I've fucking been there, bro, back in the day. I definitely was a person back in the Third Strike days where if somebody showed up with a controller, you grabbed all your friends, you took them out to the back alley, you beat the shit out of them to a bloody pulp. We don't know if they're alive or not. And you just left their body there. That's just the way it worked back in the day. I get it. I've grown up now, right? I've grown up now. So we don't do that shit anymore. Those are the arcade days. If fighting games are trying to become accessible, that's not a problem. All fighting games are going to become easier than the one before. Like almost every single one. As long as the game expands in a way that allows for new things and new creative elements for the player to express themselves, and still offers a certain level of challenge to it, whether it's decision making, like Street Fighter 6 is the perfect example of that. Nothing in Street Fighter 6 is really hard. It's just a lot of decision making that's really difficult. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. I think that's one of the best things we can do for fighting games, and I think it's wonderfully accessible that we can still have modern controls, and I can still run into a person or two in diamond ranks on my way to master and have them beat me. And I don't look at modern controls as the thing that beat me. It was the spacing, it was the knowledge, it was the matchup, it was all the other things in the exact same way that, trust me, dude, if you were bad at Street Fighter 4, it wasn't the fact that you couldn't do one-frame links. Justin Wong on modern controls is a menace. I want you to, from that sentence, I want you to remove on modern controls, so that your sentence becomes, Justin Wong is a goddamn menace. And yeah, that's right. Justin Wong using any fucking controller ever will beat the shit out of almost everybody. One of the greatest fighting game players to ever grace the genre is a menace using modern controls or classic controls. I'm really not surprised.